Tonight on Bridge City News, there are calls from local physicians for a new lab in Lethbridge to help those who have heart issues. Lethbridge East UCP candidate Nathan Newdorf officially launched his campaign and tells BCN what some of the biggest issues are heading into the spring election. And thanks to a computer glitch, you may owe the federal government thousands of dollars. Thanks so much for joining us. The physicians of internal medicine at Chinook Regional Hospital are hoping to up the ante with the province to advance public awareness of the need for a cardiac catheterization lab in Lethbridge. Currently, cardiac patients in the city are first stabilized by medication before being transported by ambulance or aircraft to Calgary for the stenting procedure. Dr. Lee Oviet says that having a cath lab in Lethbridge not only results in quicker treatment for patients, but will attract more cardiologists to the city.
Part of it is the old cliche, build it and they will come. A lot of cardiologists won't come to Lethbridge because we don't have a foundational component of our cardiac services here, which is a cath lab, really. We do have agreements for another couple of cardiologists to join us here in Lethbridge in the upcoming year to 2 year time frame. Generally speaking, if we can get this foundational element of our cath lab established here, I think cardiologists would feel far more comfortable coming to practice here.
Lethbridge, with a population of almost 100,000 people, only has one cardiologist. There is a real shortage of doctors in our province, and hospital wait times seem to be getting longer and longer. Some believe we should be hiring more physician assistants to help carry the load. Kirsten Luamala is a PA in Edmonton, and she explains how much her patients appreciate her and how much she appreciates them.
The cards that I get from my patients, thanking me for being able to spend quality time with them. Neurosurgery, we get some of the worst cases. We get the horrible, horrible Gord Downey tumors. We get the horrible treatments. And being able to help the families through that is, extremely rewarding. I love my job.
Catch my full interview with Kirsten Luamala discussing the importance of physician assistants and the difference between them and nurses coming up after business news. Dementia is a debilitating disease. Many of us know people who suffer with Alzheimer's. Sherry Remus with the Alzheimer's Society says the key of dealing with dementia is to not alienate yourself from others. BCN's Loris Alexander caught up with Sherry today at SACPA to find out how communities can come together to support those who suffer from the disease.
Oh, I'm having a dementia moment, or I must be getting Alzheimer's or old-timers.
Long before dementia takes root in the brain, there are warning signs. Some changes in behavior and anxiety written off as normal aging.
This is about trying to understand dementia differently. A lot of people have some misconceptions about it. There's a lot of stigma attached to it. And I'm just going to try to help people understand what's going through a person when they get a diagnosis of dementia, and especially what happens with the memory loss.
Stigma is one of the biggest barriers for people with dementia trying to live their lives with dignity.
A lot of people who have a diagnosis of dementia say that stigma is one of the biggest barriers for them living a quality of life. They find that they don't get invited out for things anymore. They become socially isolated, them and their care partner.
Sherry says the aim is to eliminate the stigma around the disease by changing attitudes.
Because a person with dementia can't change what's happening to them. So we have to have better understanding through education and support programs that we have at the Alzheimer's Society, and for coming to presentations such as this one and the one that we're hosting on Saturday.
The University of Lethbridge invites the community to participate in Brain Awareness Week to learn more about breakthroughs being made in brain health and dementia. For Bridge City News, I'm Loris Alexander.
With St. Patrick's Day around the corner, Ford Canada hosted a demonstration that emulates what it's like to feel impaired. As Ainsley O'Reilly explains, the objective is to keep drunk drivers off of our roads.
Today, Dunlop Ford held a demonstration where people put on equipment that made them feel impaired.
So the suit has 3 different fatal vision levels, if you will, that mimic the effects of different amounts of blood alcohol in the system. So we have different ones that sort of range in spectrum from 0.07 to 0.10, and then we move up to the 0.12 to 0.15, And then at our highest level of blood alcohol is at 0.17 to 0.20 and over. Included with the suits is a variety of weights. One is placed around one of the legs to mimic that effect of not being easy on your feet, as well as we have one that we place around the opposite wrist. So again, when you're trying to do those roadside sobriety tests and raising your arms up, you're just getting that difficulty of balance. Also within the suit, we do have a neck brace, so that mimics the restriction of movement within your neck. So if you were operating a motor vehicle, probably wouldn't be so easy to check your blind spots, do all of the necessary things that you would need to do when operating a motor vehicle. As well as we have a variety of different braces that are put at different spots in the body, just again to mimic the effects of slow joints and slow reaction time. So just thinking through and operating a vehicle, if you were to press down on your brake or your accelerator, you would be a lot slower in doing so, and those reaction times would be slower because of that impairment.
I have to say, it was fun watching people, including myself, put on the equipment and try to perform tasks that a police officer might ask when you're behind the wheel. A fun activity, but with a more powerful message.
But it really created awareness about when you're impaired, how your coordination really drops off, and you know, no one should be behind the wheel of a car in that state. It was a lot of fun, but you know, it had a real serious side to it as well.
It's fun, but again, it also shows everybody through a fun way of education the how you do lose the control of some of your limbs, your motor skills, that sort of thing. So now you imagine we were just walking here today, but now you take those skills and put yourself behind the wheel and what can happen and how easy it does happen.
At the end of the day, don't be reckless. Do not drink and drive. For Bridge City News, I'm Ainsley O'Reilly.
Lethbridge East UCP candidate Nathan Neudorf held the official launch for his election campaign yesterday. He says some of the top priorities are addressing concerns over the safe injection site, reversing the carbon tax, and economic growth here in southern Alberta.
We have a very strong economic platform. We want to address issues in the marketplace and really get people back to work. We feel like there have been a number of challenges over the past few years that businesses, particularly small businesses in Lethbridge and Alberta, have been really hit hard with. And we want to be their voice and be a responsive government to their needs and concerns. There's a number of issues specific to Lethbridge East. One of them being the injection site. There's quite a concern about that. And we need to look at that as a comprehensive solution that has everything from prevention to treatment to enforcement as well. There's 4 pillars for a drug addiction strategy, and we need to look at all of those.
Neudorf adds that the increased minimum wage needs to be revised so that it's fair for both workers and employers. Lethbridge MP Rachel Harder took in the Neudorf campaign launch last night. She spoke with Bridge City News about her concerns over China's embargo on Canadian canola and the SNC-Lavalin scandal, which has rocked Parliament Hill. She says the Prime Minister needs to be held accountable.
Here in Lethbridge alone, we have about 6 canola seed production plants or companies. And our local farmers are the ones that are producing that seed. And so it is going to be a huge detriment to them here in Lethbridge, but then of course across the country it's going to be a detriment to producers from coast to coast. At the end of the day, I think this situation could have been avoided had our Prime Minister taken strong and stable leadership, had he used his voice properly on the world stage and not offended China. We could be in a very different situation, and our farmers would be able to do what they need to do to be able to provide for their families. We know that Trudeau is the very first Prime Minister in Canada's history to be convicted of an ethics breach, and not just one, but multiple. And then those are the ones that he's convicted of, and then there's others that he's actually being accused of and that are under investigation. And then to add to that, we now have the SNC-Lavalin case, where we have the Prime Minister who strong-armed the Attorney General of Canada into doing his dirty work for him by giving SNC-Lavalin, a big engineering firm, giving them a free card. In other words, they don't have to be criminally prosecuted the way that they should be.
A House of Commons Justice Committee meeting where opposition MPs wanted to summon former Attorney General Jody Wilson-Raybould was shut down by the Liberals late yesterday. Opposition MPs say Ottawa is trying to keep the lid on the SNC-Lavalin affair.
We came forward today simply to ask him to remove the remaining gag order on Jody Wilson-Raybould's testimony and let her complete her efforts to tell the truth. He sent in his majority to shut down that discussion without a debate and ensure that Canadians will never know the truth. If they were going to let her speak, They could have done it today. What they've said is instead they're going to go into a secret meeting next Tuesday where they can shut it down and distract from the scandal. The chairman of the committee slammed his gavel and suspended the entire meeting. So it seems that Trudeau has a cross-committee strategy to just shut down any more questions about his corruption scandal. But we will use all the tools that are available to us as Her Majesty's loyal opposition to get to the truth and end Trudeau's cover-up.
Thanks to $9 million from the Alberta government's Climate Leadership Plan, municipalities across the province, including here in Lethbridge, will be able to upgrade their recreation facilities with more energy-efficient technology. The program provides up to $750,000 per municipality. The funding will go towards upgrading equipment at arenas, rinks, aquatic, and recreation centres. Environment and Parks Minister Shannon Phillips says this will allow cities to save money and reduce their carbon footprint at the same time. You may owe the federal government some money, not in the form of taxes, but because of the Canada Pension Plan overpayment. Ottawa says a computer glitch dating back to 2009 caused the feds to overpay 15,000 Canadians almost $66 million. The government estimates that 95% of Canadians owe less than $25,000 each, with most people owing around $5,000. A spokesperson for the department says the first wave of collection notices have resulted in repayments worth just over $500,000. The IT glitch is one of many that has dogged the feds for years. The Phoenix payroll system fiasco, which began in 2016, continues to leave thousands of public servants overpaid, underpaid, or not paid at all. Many countries around the world, including here in Canada, have banned the Boeing 737 MAX 8 aircraft since the tragic Ethiopian Airlines crash, which claimed 157 lives, including 18 Canadians. Now you can add the United States to that list. Many passengers south of the border say they trust that aviation officials made the right decision.
I feel like it's interesting that they actually passed all their testing to be in service, and now they're going back and grounding them, from complaints or something. So just, did it really go through all the testing or not, or just stuff afterwards that they're finding out about the plane?
Actually, I was flying back from Daytona Beach, American Airlines today with a couple of flights, and I wanted to make sure what plane I was getting on because I probably wouldn't have gotten on the MAX. 2 downed airplanes, new models. I deal with equipment every day, and I understand when things happen a little too quickly out of the gate. It's usually a sign of some issues, and I wasn't going to be at 35,000 feet with an issue.
Relatives and officials visited the site of the Ethiopian plane crash. Preliminary data shows the pilots of the aircraft had simply lost control.
We hope that the cooperation between the government of Ethiopia and the Ethiopian Airlines, of course, and with the respected embassies, especially Indonesian embassies, are really expected.
The preliminary data source, that's the flight radar website that usually tracks airplanes alive while they are flying. So from that, you can see the airplane was not stable in its climbing phase of the flight.
2 young men wearing hoods, carrying guns, knives, and crossbows opened fire at a school in southern Brazil yesterday, killing 8 people before taking their own lives. The dead included 6 students and 2 teachers. Many other people are in hospital with various injuries. Authorities believe the attackers were former students, all in their early to mid-20s. The Raul Brazil Professor School has more than 1,600 students from elementary to high school. It was on this date that Albert Einstein, actor Michael Caine, and Quincy Jones were all born. This is Today in History for March the 14th.
March 14th, 1879. Physicist Albert Einstein, considered the greatest scientist of the 20th century, is born in Germany.
It is intelligence, which is the ability to learn from experience, to plan ahead. It includes the capacity to give up immediate temporary benefits for permanent ones.
1794, Eli Whitney receives a patent for his cotton gin, an invention that revolutionizes America's cotton industry. 1995, astronaut Norman Thagard becomes the first American to enter space aboard a Russian rocket. And 1933.
Good night, you princes of Maine. you kings of New England.
Actor Michael Caine, whose movie roles include Alfie and Dirty Rotten Scoundrels, is born in London. Also that same year, composer and conductor Quincy Jones is born in Chicago. He's best known for producing Michael Jackson's Thriller album and the song We Are the World. Today in history, March 14th. Sandy Kozel, The Associated Press.
Monty Noyes is 66 years young. He says his part-time job delivering orders for Skip the Dishes is a source of joy for him, even when blizzards strike in Winnipeg. Monty is part of a growing trend of people in Canada who retire from their jobs but reject decades of idleness to keep working to enrich their lives or stretch their incomes.
I really enjoy the job. I get to meet great people. Everybody's always happy to see me. I go to the restaurant. They're happy to see me. I take the food to the customer. They're happy to see me. It's a real positive experience. The reason I started working for Skip the Dishes was I needed a supplement to my income. My pension, government pension, wasn't enough to live on, so I needed to supplement it. And I've been finding that Skip the Dishes is a great way to do that. There was a snowstorm we had early in the year, and it was pretty bad. The roads were slippery and everything. And I did a delivery to a gentleman that was staying in a hotel downtown. And when I got there, he asked me, boy, is it slippery out there? And I said, oh, yeah, it's murder. And he goes, well, just a minute. And he goes back into his room, and he grabs a $20 bill, and he hands me $20 for a tip. And I said, oh, wow, are you sure? And he goes, yeah. He goes, I really appreciate that you went and got my food for me. And he commented on my app and said, dude delivered in a snowstorm. Thanks, Monty.
That reminds me, I need to order some dinner for tonight. Lots of sunshine again today and fairly mild. The mercury will climb even more. I'll have a look at the long-range forecast coming up in just a moment. Lots of blue sky and sunshine today. Tonight mainly clear with a low near -2. Tomorrow mainly sunny again with a high near 4 degrees. A great weekend shaping up. Saturday and Sunday, 7 degrees and sunshine for both days. Monday even warmer with a high expected near 11. Tuesday mainly sunny with a high near 19. Look at Wednesday's forecast. Sunshine and a balmy high of 21 degrees. Checking the almanac, the average high for this time of year is 5 and an average low of -7. The highest temperature on this date was recorded in 1992 at 20 degrees, and the record low was a chilly -29 in 1939. Sunrise was at 7:48, sunset at 7:33. Let's see what temperatures will be like across the country tomorrow. Vancouver will have a mixture of sun and cloud and should see high near 15. A chance of showers and 11 for Victoria. Sunny and 4 degrees is on tap for Calgary. Partly cloudy and 4 as well for Edmonton. Increasing clouds and -1 for Regina. A chance of flurries and -1 as well for Saskatoon on Friday. Flurries and -5 for Winnipeg. Rain and 7 degrees for Toronto. Showers and 7 as well for Ottawa. Montreal will have rain and 5. In the Maritimes, Fredericton, New Brunswick will have periods of rain and 6. Halifax, Nova Scotia will have light showers and 9. Charlottetown, PEI will have rain and 7. And in St. John's, Newfoundland, expect sun mixed with cloud and a high near 5 degrees tomorrow. Premier Rachel Notley says China's decision to reject shipments of Canadian canola could cost Alberta farmers hundreds of millions of dollars and a loss of up to 3,000 jobs. China suspended canola imports from Richardson International, saying hazardous organisms were detected in the company's product. International Trade Minister Jim Carr says Canada has still not seen any evidence to support that claim. He says China has to provide proof to back up those claims. China's decision to reject shipments of Canadian canola comes with the two countries wrapped in a diplomatic dispute after the December arrest of Meng Wanzhou, a senior executive with Huawei. Household debt rose in the fourth quarter of last year. Stats Canada says there was $1.79 in credit market debt for every dollar of household disposable income. Credit market debt, which includes consumer debt and mortgages, totaled nearly $2.21 trillion for the fourth quarter. Mortgage debt alone reached nearly $1.44 trillion. Stats Canada reports consumer debt and non-mortgage loans total just over $769 billion. Travel company Transat AT is reporting a first quarter loss of almost $50 million. That is up from its loss of $3.2 million in the same quarter of last year. Transat says its results were hurt by the weaker dollar and higher fuel prices. Revenue fell to $647.6 million, down from $648.4 million a year ago. Acknowledging that Brexit process is stuck, the British government says it will give lawmakers a series of votes on what to do next if Parliament does not approve an EU divorce deal by next week. British Prime Minister Theresa May has struck a deal with the EU on withdrawal terms, but Parliament has rejected it twice. Britain is due to leave the EU in 15 days on March the 29th. There are a lot of scams out there right now. Fraudsters are reaching out via text messages, phone calls, and emails. There are CRA scams, home improvement scams, even romance scams. Ron Riemann is with the Better Business Bureau here in Southern Alberta, and he explains the best way to protect yourself from a scammer.
You know, it sounds so cliche, but follow your gut. Your gut will always tell you if this is too good to be true, and that's the old adage. And we always have to remember that we always have the power to either hang up the phone, slam the door, or put that email link in the recycle bin.
Catch the full interview with Mr. Riemann discussing the details of some of the biggest scams you need to watch out for coming up after business news. Now, here's a look at today's markets. Recapping one of our top stories this hour, the physicians of internal medicine at Chinook Regional Hospital are telling the province that Lethbridge needs a cardiac cath lab. Right now, cardiac patients have to be stabilized by medication before being transported to Calgary for the stenting procedure. Some doctors believe if we had a cath lab, we would attract more cardiologists to our city. Lethbridge currently only has one cardiologist. Up next, I chat with Ron Riemann from the Better Business Bureau about all of the scams that are circulating out there and how you can best protect yourself and your family. That interview is coming up next. But first, here's a look what's happening in and around your community.
Here's your Bridge City News Community Calendar. The Lethbridge Community Band Society is celebrating the spirit of spring with a concert on Saturday, March 16th at 7 p.m. at College Drive Community Church. This musical event will feature the Lethbridge Community Silver Band under the direction of Sam Yamamoto and Karen Van de Vendel, along with the Encanto Singers. Tickets are $15 and children 12 and under are free. Purchase your tickets today at CASA or online at lcbs.yapcity.com. Celebrate Recovery is a Christ-centered recovery program for any hurt, hang-up, and habit. This group meets Friday nights at the Park Meadows Baptist Church. The evening begins at 6 p.m. with supper and follows with an opportunity to share and connect with others in small groups. For more information, visit celebraterecovery.ca. Big Brothers Big Sisters in Lethbridge is searching for volunteers to mentor children and youth in their various programs. Volunteers commit anywhere from 1 hour a week to 1 full year. They have many kids on their wait list that are looking for a big brother or sister. Make a difference in a child's life and start something big. For more information, call 403-328-9355 or email info.leth@bigbrothersbigsisters.ca. And that's your Bridge City News Community Calendar.
The Better Business Bureau of Canada has come out with a list of the top 10 fraudulent scams that are ripping Canadians off on a large scale. Joining me now to talk about it is Ron Riemann, an accredited business coach with the Lethbridge branch of the Better Business Bureau. Welcome back to BCN, Ron.
Good to be here, Hal. Thank you.
Last year, Canadians lost over $121 million to scammers.
Amazing.
That's double the amount from 2015.
Yes.
So why is this happening? What's going on?
I don't know why it's happening. I think more or less the marketers, or rather the fraudsters and the scammers, are more slick. They're more intelligent for the wrong reasons, and we seem to fall for the traps that these marketers seem to ploy against us.
Now, apparently only 5% of people who've been scammed report the crime. Why is the number so low?
I guess one of the reasons, the biggest reasons why that happens, Hal, is because there's a bit of a shame in what's happening, especially for the elderly people who lose a lot of their life savings. How do you explain that to their sons and daughters and their grandchildren, for that matter? So they try and keep it low key, but of course what happens is that it does finally catch up to the family because money's not there and they have to pay the bill still, and so it's the shame. It's the shame that really kind of makes it very, very low key for them.
So who are the other people who are most vulnerable? Seniors, with maybe students, or maybe even new immigrants to our country?
Immigrants as well as teenagers. Teenagers, of course, when they go out into the work field and they get a new job and they're trying to create a new life for themselves professionally and personally. And they find that they want to, not all of them, but some of them want to get quick, rich scheme, when they want to get money very fast. Mm-hmm. And of course they'll listen to a pitch if it sounds too good. Even if it's too good to be true, they'll fall for it. And they're an age bracket that's very vulnerable right now too.
So Ron, bottom line, what should somebody do if they've been scammed? What's the first step? Maybe take us on a variety of steps.
There are a number of steps that you can possibly do if it does happen to you. If you feel like you've been taken, there are a number of things you should do first. First, if it's a local issue, if it's somebody physically that came to your house or phoned you, if you know that person or that business that possibly came to your door or telephoned you, get the local police involved. They may be able to help. Unfortunately, if it's out of province, out of country, or out of North America for that reason, they can help. We can help. The Better Business Bureau, Anti-Fraud Center, of course, can help as well. And also, we encourage them to talk about it, because we need to get this information out to the public. We need to, like you and I talking about this right now, we need to let people know about what's going on. And we put out these press releases once a week if anything is fraudulently going on into our community. So we encourage people, as much as they don't want to do this because they feel shamed, we invite them to talk to us, because it's marketers are so slick, like I said earlier. Another good reason is to make sure that don't feel shame, because they are good at what they do. They know what to say. They have their sheets right in front of them. They know what to say next when they get a response from yourself.
Except when it comes to the CRA scam, they say the cops are going to come arrest you at your door.
That's right.
I've received that call. You've received the call, and but hey, we can make this all go away if you pay with iTunes gift cards. Like, what? Come on.
I know, iTunes gift cards, right? And we can talk a little bit about those iTunes gift cards and why they're so popular now. But before we get to that, the CRA, of course, they are a government agency. So when you get a phone call from somebody apparently from the CRA, you would think they would talk more professional about this. But we talked off camera about sometimes these phone callers from the CRA would talk very laid back or very unprofessional. And that should be a red flag. But unfortunately, some people get caught up on the scare tactics that they throw to the listener, to the point where it's like they're terrified, because most of, not all the time, these listeners, these consumers have done nothing wrong in terms of breaking the law or cheated on their taxes, for that matter. So they automatically, they pull out their wallet, because of course the cops are just around the corner, as they like to call it, cops. And of course that's not true. And one big tip to always realize with the CRA, they will not phone you unless you specifically ask in your tax returns with your accountant that you want to get a phone call. They will always email you, or they will provide a snail mail response all the time.
One of the top scams involves romance. Why don't you tell me a bit about that?
Romance is one of those trickier things that most of it is done online. The activity, that is. The scammers and the fraudsters will put on a painted picture of not themselves, but a picture of someone who they're not, and of course a name and how old they are and what they actually do. It's all make-believe in terms of trying to put on this best impression for this would-be person that you want to bilk as many thousands of dollars as you possibly can. And what happens is that some people will fall for it, and the scammer is trying to build that trust into that listener, and they do that over a long period of time, perhaps 6 to 8 weeks. And when it gets to the point where they know they can trust that person, then they'll bring in the monetary discussion. And just a few years ago, there was an incident in Alberta, northern Alberta. I believe Camrose or Wetaskiwin, and the poor lady was billed over $80,000. And one piece of advice: if it happens to somebody who wants to meet this person, do it in a public place. If they are who they think they are and they're the real deal, have them meet at a coffee shop or meet at a restaurant. You know, so. Just to make sure that they
take the necessary precautions,
exactly.
Right? Ron, it sounds like with some of these scams, we really have to check our emotions at the door, don't we?
We sure do. A lot of times we have to kind of look at the big picture and say, is this, you know, I tell consumers who phone me over the phone and I say, you know, it sounds so cliche, but follow your gut. Your gut will always tell you if this is too good to be true, and that's the old adage. And we always have to remember that we always have the power to either hang up the phone, slam the door, or put that email link in the recycle bin. And just always remember that reputable companies, especially if they come to your door, they'll give you time to think about a purchase if you are interested, instead of the very heavy sales tactic part of it. Reputable companies will phone you the next day and say, hey, listen, can I call you and say, maybe get your answer, let you sleep on it, and that sort of thing. So to summarize again, you've got the power. Hang up the phone if you have to.
How about some of the online purchasing scams that are out there right now? Let's talk a bit about those.
The biggest one right now is skin creams. We get a ton of ladies, at least I have, my office has been phoning my office in terms of skin cream products. And they get it through magazines or television infomercials, and whereas you get this free product, or you get a product that practically it's next to nothing, and it comes to your door, and you think that, well, I've just got this free product, so I'm done with it, and man, it's not too bad, but I don't want to buy it anymore. But what happens is that you don't read the fine print, and they'll start shipping out some more of that skin cream, unaware that they're also dinging your credit card at the same time. And the fine print, the terms and conditions are never mentioned, although, you know, when you look at those small wordings on the bottom of the screen, it just says right there, of course, who can read it? But a lot of people just are unaware that, oh, well, I guess I got more free cream. This is just wonderful, until they get their bank statement.
Yeah,
and
that's right.
So what happens is they phone the credit card company, and of course they're going to say, well, maybe not. You may have to phone the company. You phone the company. Of course, they're not from Canada. They're from the United States. And if you're lucky enough to get them on the phone, and if you're lucky enough to have them cancel your subscription, which is a great thing, but sometimes it doesn't happen that way.
How about just cancel the credit card?
Cancel the credit card is probably the fastest thing to do right now.
How about employment scams? Some of those are floating out there too, right?
Yeah, and what happens is that they're through a magazine or an internet page. On the side of the page, it'll say, for $100,000 we can make you manager, and this apply now. You can become a manager of so and so. You can make this much working with us. And what happens is that these companies here, they won't do any sort of check on you. They won't do any sort of background check. They'll just offer you the job, but they also want a processing fee before they hire you. And of course, that's a red flag right in itself, right there.
Isn't there also the fear of identity theft too? You give them all your personal information.
Another big thing right there too.
Right?
Yeah, you pass on a lot of the personal information, and of course, the bottom line is that if they're not going to get money from you, at least they want to get your personal information from you.
And we've all heard the term phishing scams.
Yes.
And we're not talking about going for trout or salmon.
No.
So what exactly is a phishing scam?
A phishing scam is a phishing scam basically is using a very popular logo of perhaps any company in North America, plastering it on an email, plastering on a snail mail, any sort of correspondence, And basically what they want is information from you, because let's say, for example, it's a bank, one of the national banks. The national bank could probably say that we've noticed there's unscrupulous behavior going on right now. We'd like to make sure that it's coming from your account number. We want to verify it's true or not. Can we make sure that it is true by giving us a call or hit the link, and we'll be able to verify that it's yourself. And of course, that's just one step closer of getting into your personal information. That's all it is.
Now, advance fee loans came in at number 7 on your top 10
Yes.
list. What are they all about?
Well, you know that most advance fee lenders are licensed here in the province of Alberta, but sometimes you'll get those phone calls, or sometimes you'll get those emails where they can perhaps offer you $15,000, $20,000, $30,000, whatever amount of money, and on top they'll say, give us the $500 for a processing fee, and we'll give you $15,000, $20,000 as money for whatever you want to do with. And of course, that's another example of getting more of your personal information. We know that it's illegal for anybody to ask for money up front before you get your money yourself from a loan company. So be aware of that, and always go to the reputable lenders here in this province here, because they do a good job of what they're doing, and they're licensed. The ones that are very aggressive over the telephone, they're only in it for one reason, and we know that it's just for your money.
Absolutely. How about tech support scam? I hear that's making the rounds as well. People are intimidated by computers sometimes. They're having issues. They call up. It's like, if you're having problems with your computer, call this number. Let's talk a bit about that.
It's funny because Microsoft, because being the biggest company in the world, one of the biggest companies in the world, you think they have time to phone me or you any time of the day to say that you've got problems with your computer? Of course not. They don't. They don't have time at all. And the one question you have to ask yourself is, when someone does phone you and say, well, how do you know my computer is even broken, for that matter? And what happens is, it's a little bit of a scare tactic too, is because they'll throw in, if your computer doesn't have the proper virus software, then hackers will get in, not knowing, be announced to them, that they're actually talking to a hacker themselves here. So what happens is they try and get the computer person to type in some configuration on the computer, and basically what happens is they want to get your IP address. And what they want to do is, either they want to put malware, which is software and to kind of hijack your computer, and they want to obtain as much information as they can. They want to take control of your computer. And we always say, you know what? If you do have computer problems, and there are companies out there that call themselves Microsoft approved, but they're not. I always say to the consumers that phone my office, it says, take it to a local guy in town here, and he'll be able to fix it for you. It's going to cost you a little bit more, but you know you're going to have it done right. It's here local, and of course it's under warranty, and you'll be able to have peace of mind.
How about some of these fly-by-night contractors that come knocking on your door and they offer up a little bit of home improvement? But a lot of that can be a scam as well.
Lots of times, and using the pavement is a good example of that right now. As we approach warmer weather right now, and more spring renovations are being tackled. Driveways are a big example of that right now. You get an example of somebody with an unmarked van who's down the street putting asphalt down on a driveway, and they'll come to your door and say, hey, listen, we've just finished a job down the street, and we wanted to know whether you want to have your driveway done. And be careful of that sort of thing, you know, because of the fact that you don't know who these people are. You don't know what grade of asphalt it is. For that matter, you don't know how much they're going to charge. So stay away from that as much as you possibly can. And with home contractors, again, they use unmarked vans, and they don't have an office. They use a laptop as their office. And a lot of times too is they're fly-by-nights, as you said, because they're in so quickly and out so quickly, and they want to get as much money as they possibly can. And please don't give them any deposit until you sign something on paper.
Yeah, I was going to ask, let's say, at the average concrete driveway with the rebar is around $10,000. They say, I want $7,000 right up front before we even start.
I always tell the
You know?
consumers a 3-3-3 rule: 3 before, 3 during, and 3 after. It provides that incentive for that contractor to make sure that they get the job done.
Now, what about the bank investigator scam? That's interesting.
That's very slick. That's a very slick one. It involves more than one person.
Okay.
And again, it goes back to the banking thing where somebody from the bank supposedly phones you up and says, well, we have some illegal activity going on with your account, and we want to direct you to a bank investigator. And what happens is that they're going to give you the legitimate number of the bank investigator, the legitimate number, but it gets rerouted because what happens is that they buy that number, and the next thing you know, before they hang up, the other person comes onto the line and says, hi, I'm the bank investigator. I'm here to take care of the situation that you've spoken with that person earlier. Mm-hmm. And it's a two-person job, basically. An employee from the bank, and then somebody who represents themselves as a bank investigator. It's very slick. And the scammers do a lot of practicing to get this done, and they make it look really legit. They do it in the early morning hours before the banks are even open. That's how they do it.
And when we're just waking up sometimes early in the
I
morning,
know,
too.
and a lot of times we don't have our ball bearings straight,
Yeah.
you know, and all of a sudden you just say yes to everything.
Ron, how often should we change our online passwords, and what kind of passwords should we avoid? Like maybe using our birthdays, perhaps?
That's a good thing too, but make sure you add an asterisk or a comma or a punctuation mark, or to kind of mix it up with the uppercase or lowercase a letter. Please do it every 90 days. We notice that some people who buy a laptop, say an iPad or a desktop, they'll just kind of like overshadow the password, and they'll just leave it open. And some people will actually use the password as 12345 or admin or even the word password, and some of these scammers are pretty good at figuring out, trying to go into the minds of people of passwords. So to summarize your question, every 90 days is a good time to change your passwords.
Now, you also have a scam tracker on the Better Business Bureau website.
Yes.
Tell me more about that.
On our website, www.bbb.org/Calgary, we have information for people who feel that they've been scammed or frauded or have suspicious activity happening with them. We encourage them to leave information about that, so people like you and I can look at that information for our own purposes.
Ron Riemann, accredited business coach with the Lethbridge branch of the Better Business Bureau. Thanks a lot for joining me in studio
Al, it's
today.
a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
As we all know, Canada continues to deal with a shortage of doctors, and we have long wait times in hospitals. A little too long, some say. And some believe that hiring more physician assistants may be a solution to the problem. To talk more about this is Kirsten Luamala, Provincial Director for Alberta with the Canadian Association of Physician Assistants. Kirsten, welcome to BCN.
Thank you.
I'm not sure that many Canadians are even aware that we have physician assistants in our country. How would you best describe a physician assistant?
That's an excellent question. And I actually come across that statement on a daily basis of people not knowing who I am or what we do. The best way to describe us is we are physician extenders. We are the extension of our doctors. We help increase their ability to practice and be in more places than they physically can humanly be in. And so we work under their license. We do delegated tasks. We're a delegated profession, but we do a lot of what the doctors do. I take histories, I do physical exams, I see consults, we interpretate lab tests, diagnostic imagings, and I also assist in surgery.
So what kind of training and education goes into becoming a physician assistant?
Well, we have 3 schools in Canada outside of the Canadian Forces, and all 4 of those schools are to be a 2-year program after you've done an undergraduate degree. So most of our PAs have a minimum of 6 years of training by the time they're done. So 4 years of an undergraduate and then a 2-year PA program, which is a 1-year classroom and then a 1-year clerkship year.
So what sorts of things would you not be allowed to do as a PA?
Well, we have a defined scope of practice, and our scope of practice depends on the environment that we're working on. For example, I work in the Department of Neurosurgery. So I'm not going to go and do what general surgery does because my surgeons don't do general surgery. So I wouldn't be putting a chest tube in, but I would be assisting in the operating room. I would be doing things like I do external ventricular drains, lumbar drains. I take out a lot of drains, but I wouldn't be doing an exploratory laparotomy, which is what a general surgeon would do. So it's really defined by what my surgeon does.
So outside of the hospital then, Kirsten, where else would we find physician assistants working?
Well, in Alberta, we actually work in a variety of different specialties. We work in family medicine clinics. Bassano, Milk River, down by you each have a physician assistant. We do have some that work in geriatrics. I believe there's a couple in Lethbridge area. We have stroke rehabilitation. We have occupational health PAs, dermatology, plastic surgery, as well as a lot of the in-hospital facilities.
Kirsten, there's been some talk of expanding your role. Some say this could make our healthcare system more efficient and cost-effective. What are your thoughts?
Well, we know that we can free up our physicians' time, and there have been research studies that have been shown that we increase the ability to free up beds quickly in a hospital. Discharges post-surgery, we can get them done in a much faster fashion just because we're available to do that. We've seen, for example, stroke rehabilitation in Calgary. We've seen wait times for their initial appointment go from 18 to 24 weeks to wait to see the physician to less than 6 with a PA added to it. So expanding our role, having more PAs, definitely is going to increase the access to healthcare for our population of Alberta.
So where else specifically would you want to see the role of the PA expanded?
I think for rural family medicine, for sure. I mean, we've seen the reports of various facilities across the country. In Nova Scotia, for example, there's a lack of family doctors. Emerges are closing, and people are having to travel upwards of 3 hours to get emergency care. We've recently seen hospitals, even emergency departments, even in Alberta, that have had to close, and patients are having to travel, 30 minutes to get to health care that was available before. So certainly rural medicine, but in the hospitals, in our family medicine clinics, even in the urban centers, where we're freeing up at least 25% of our supervising physicians' time, where they can spend more time with those more complex patients who need their help.
How about helping seniors as well, and maybe some seniors' homes or seniors' long-term care facilities? Now, would the role of the PA help keep seniors living in their own homes maybe a little bit longer?
Absolutely. I mean, if you've got a family doctor who is willing to let their PA do home care visits, that certainly is a way. And we all want to keep our parents in their home longer. So why not? I think we're open to anything. And certainly if we look to our American counterparts, they're utilizing PAs way more than we are.
So which provinces are currently offering licensing training and certification of PAs?
So currently there's only 3 programs in Canada, 2 of which are in Ontario, so the University of Toronto and McMaster University, as well as the University of Manitoba has a PA program. However, we are being employed in 4 provinces currently in Canada outside of the Canadian Armed Forces. Manitoba and New Brunswick are both regulated PAs that they've hired, as well as Alberta is in the final stages of our regulation, and we have approximately 50 here in Alberta, and then Ontario has the bulk of the PAs.
So Kirsten, why are provinces kind of dragging their feet on this a little bit?
I really don't know what the answer is to that. We've been around in our country in Canada for over 30 years through the Canadian Armed Forces. We've only been in the civilian sector now for 20 years, and it's been a very slow process. But every province is individual in their healthcare, and we need the other provinces to start looking at changing their health acts to allow PAs to further work.
Has Ottawa shown any indication to increase funding for physician assistants?
It's an interesting question because I think there's a misconception that the federal government has oversight on this. It's actually provincially regulated. And so we need the provincial health acts to say, yes, we would like PAs in this particular province. And Manitoba took the lead on that. Ontario was next, then New Brunswick, and now Alberta. And so we are needing the provinces to change their health acts to be able to help us better work in those provinces.
So maybe we can make our way up the ladder, up the chain, have the provinces put pressure on Ottawa to maybe help fund us at the same time, and then give some more money towards the PAs. Now, I understand that your profession is closely related to nurse practitioners. What's the difference then between their role and yours as a PA?
Well, we're trained under different models. So anybody can become a PA that's got some healthcare background, including nurses. And we do see a lot of nurses who decide to become PAs. But we're trained under a medical model that mirrors our doctors and their residents very closely, whereas the nursings are trained under a nursing model. But there's room for both. And, we value our nurse practitioners just as much.
Are they facing a lot of the same challenges? Are all provinces providing training and licensing opportunities?
I can't speak to the training of the nurse practitioners and what provinces offer their programs, but certainly nurse practitioners are employed in all provinces. They are licensed in all provinces, but they also face some hurdles and restrictions also, depending on what the provincial regulations are allowing them to do.
Now, one of the Canadian medical journals recently had an article that said there may be some tension and resistance coming from the doctors. Apparently, some of them are not keen on seeing PAs and NPs expanding their roles and becoming more independent. Some say it may even turn into a bit of a turf war if it hasn't already. What are your thoughts?
I don't believe that there's a turf war. I think it's a lack of understanding what both professions bring to the table. I've been a PA for 10 years, and I've been a PA for 5 years here at the University of Alberta Hospital. Initially there was a lot of questions as to what we are and what we do, but I don't have that as much from my professional colleagues as I did in the very beginning. And so the understanding is coming very quickly, and they're seeing the benefits.
Now, is there anything your organization is planning on doing to help get the ball rolling on expanding your roles? And maybe is there anything our viewers can do to help?
Well, currently right now in Alberta specifically, we are finalizing our regulation, which will allow us to be able to be utilized in a much more efficient manner. And so, there's always, if your viewers have had a PA look after them, or they've had exposure to a PA, speaking to their MLAs, giving some anecdotal evidence as to how they felt their experience will certainly be beneficial, especially with an election coming up. It would be nice to have regulation finalized soon.
So Kirsten, you've been a PA for a while now. Tell me about some of the early challenges when you first became a physician assistant compared to today.
I think it's the lack of knowing what our job entails and utilizing us to our fullest. Some of the biggest challenges in Alberta is our regulation. The Nursing Association has indicated to the nurses that they are to not take a lot of orders from an unregulated profession. We fully support that stance. We think regulation is a very, very good thing for all professions to have. And so, that has really been one of our biggest challenges. Once people have dealt with PAs, the reception has been very warm.
Now, we've got the big provincial election coming up on or before May 31st. Have you talked to some members of the UCP or the NDP saying, hey, you'll have my support if you help fund us a little bit more?
We've not approached the UPC at all at this point in time. The NDP currently has worked quite hard in getting our regulation and getting us added to the Health Act during their tenure. And so we are working quite closely with the NDP to try and get regulation finalized. Funding is a different issue. We haven't really pushed the funding issue at this point in time because regulation has been our main focus.
So lastly, let me ask you something, Kirsten. What would you say are the biggest rewards for you as a physician assistant here in Alberta?
Get a little emotional, sorry. The cards that I get from my patients, thanking me for being able to spend quality time with them. Neurosurgery, we get some of the worst cases. We get the horrible, horrible Gord Downey tumors. We get the horrible tumors. And being able to help the families through that, extremely rewarding. I love my job.
Well, that's beautiful to hear. Kirsten Luamala, Provincial Director for Alberta with the Canadian Association of Physician Assistants. Thanks a lot for joining me today from Edmonton.
Thank you very much for having me.
On behalf of all of us here at BCN, I'm Hal Roberts. God bless and have a great night.